The black bear itself evolved back into a whale. Yes, the ancestor of the whale.
Dang, man. That's the most absurd thing I've ever heard. A black bear to whale. I got a bridge in Boone County I'd like to sell you.
Cooter, that's an old insult. Don't do that.
I'm serious. I've got a bridge. It's in Boone County. My grandpappy made it. Ain't got nobody want to buy it. Nobody's going to buy it. But I figured this little guy's so dumb, he might actually buy that thing off of me.
Come on in. Listen, I want to introduce a couple special guests. Edwin Mundybutter's back, professor, evolutionist. Hello, and Bob Cooterson. So, go ahead, Edwin Mundybutter, how are you today?
Why, thank you. I am the top biology professor at my university. I am an expert in evolution. Evolution is settled science and explains the world to which we live.
Thank you, Professor. Next, I'd like to introduce Bob Cooterson.
Hi, my name is Cooter, which is short for Bob Cooterson. Hey, hello, where'd you go? Where'd
Cooter.
You guys go?
No,
hello?
we didn't. We
Hang
just
up
cut
on
the
me?
angle of the camera only to you. You're still on here. You're fine.
Oh, I thought you guys done hung up on me, like an old telephone.
I think I know what you're saying, but let me go ahead and let the professor speak. Professor, go ahead.
Evolution. It is such a wonderful science. It is settled science that explains the wonderful world we live in. You see, millions of years ago, lightning struck the waters, and then in this primordial stew, we see a single cell.
Well, I ain't no scientist or nothing, but let me tell you something. I call it the way I see it, I see it the way I see it. You know what I'm saying?
Don't interrupt. Professor, please, continue.
Look, the fossil records tell us exactly the phases and steps of evolution. We can see how the species evolved from that single cell when lightning struck the waters and the conception of life began.
Wait a second, are you telling me that lightning struck the water and made life? Wait a second. If lightning struck water and made a cell, what'd that cell eat?
What do you mean, what did it eat?
Okay, Professor, there ain't no life on Earth, you say. Nothing. No plants, no animals. And then this cell comes out of nowhere. What did it eat? Because, it would die pretty doggone fast. There ain't got no food to eat.
The fossil records tell us exactly the phases and steps of evolution. We can see how the species evolved from that single cell when lightning struck the waters and the conception of life began.
Now, hold on, Professor Eats Butter on Mondays. Are you saying that it takes a long time to create new life?
That's the power.
Hold on now. Now, let me tell you something. Now, when I take my here sweaty underwear and I throw it in a box of hay,
What?
I get mice in only 2
What?
weeks.
How preposterous.
Seen it myself.
The mere suggestion of instant life, that's spontaneous generation is what you're proposing here, and that's...
No, I said I seen it myself. And then it turned out to be adult mice at that.
Why am I even debating an ignoramus?
Ignoramus? Now you're going to make me want to smoke, and I ain't got my pipe on me.
There's no smoking
my
on set.
tobacco.
No, Cooter. This is, like I said, a family show. It's a gospel show.
I ain't on your set.
Interesting. We can actually observe a missing link. A lesser evolved species right here on your set
Are you
among us.
insulting me? You know what? I'm about ready to smack you upside your head.
Hey, no hitting. How did you even hit him? You're not even on the set. All right, look. Spontaneous generation. I give that, for settled science, a green yes. What? That was actually settled science at one point in time. Matter of fact, that was a de facto belief system before evolution. That you created life instantly from what are substances. And that was a theory. Sweaty underwear in with wheat in a box that you get mice in 2 weeks. That was actually a belief system. I mean, there was actually doctors that believed that. Let me see. There was a Dr. Van Helmont, 1610. But that theory was disproved by Louis Pasteur, right? Right before evolution became on the scene. Louis Pasteur was 1859. What he did is they would boil water up until then to prove the theory of spontaneous generation. They would take swamp water and they would boil it, right? And in boiling it, what they found out is they would kill all life in it. And then they would seal it in a glass jar. But then it would get scum, life. And they thought life was just coming into it spontaneously. It was just magically appearing. But see, Louis Pasteur, he took a flask. And he put the same boiled water, sanitized water in the flask, but he heated and turned the neck into an S curve, and it went up. That kept the water from being contaminated from the air. And the longer it sat, nothing. No scum, no life of it, anything. Then after a long period of time, he took the flask and he tilted it and let the water go up the little S curve and come in contact with air. And then he let it sit a little bit longer. And guess what? It got scum. What he was proving is that those jars were not sealed right. When they would boil it, they thought it was sealed. It wasn't sealed right. So he disproved the whole spontaneous generation. So let's go back to the professor. Professor, let's go on to the next question. Are you okay, Professor? No smacking on the back of the head. I'm sorry about that. Are you okay?
Yes, I am fine. I am more than the sum of my feelings because I am an evolutionist.
We understand. So go right ahead, Professor. Continue. What's the next thing on your agenda?
Thank you. We've disproven spontaneous generation. The mere idea of a species coming out of hay and sweaty underwear is preposterous. No, you see, the answer to spontaneous generation is time. Time. You see, the foundation of evolution is time. And see, given time, we see life has evolved. That is the power of evolution. Time.
So this is science that can't be observed because of it's longer than our lifetime?
Look, I observed the mice. I observed it myself. They started as adult mice.
Okay.
Well, see, being the scientist, I thought I'd start experimenting myself. Let me tell you, I started cutting the tails off these mice. You know, I figured if I cut the tails off these mice, then they might not grow tails. Well, you see, I took Daddy's tail and Mommy's tail, and I chopped off tails. And then I took their young'uns, and I chopped off their tails. And then I chopped off their young'uns' tails, and then the grandbabies' tails, and the great-grandbabies' tails. And then I started cutting out the great-great-great-great-great-great-grandbabies' tails. And
Cooter Bob, we get the point.
okay, so you know what? They kept being born with tails. I never did get the tails not to grow.
All right. I give this, for settled science, a green yes. Okay, you don't think I'm crazy. Yes, there was actually a belief system for evolution that the experience, what's the word? The law of disuse. It was a law of disuse. That if you didn't use a part of the body, that you would evolve without it, that your generations would happen without it. So we had, his name was Augustus Weismann, and what he did was cut tails off of mice, and he did that for 20 generations and proved that no matter what, the mice still grow tails. Why? We understand genetics, that DNA is actually, all the DNA that you're born with is in you. If you cut off an arm or tail, it doesn't change your DNA. Your DNA code still has that. So let's move forward. All right, Professor, last round. Please enlighten us with more of your science
Let
ideas.
the experts speak now. You see, evolution explains everything we need to know because it is settled science. You see, millions of years ago, time, the foundation of evolution time. And you know from the primordial stew, after the lightning struck the water, creating a simple cell, that life was teeming in the oceans. But there was one species in the oceans that said, I wish to walk on dry land, the dry land which I see. And so it willed itself feet from its fins, and then it crawls out of the ocean upon dry land upon which it walks. An amazing thing, evolution.
How'd it find a wife? I mean, it's a critter with feet, and if there ain't no other critters with feet on the land, and if it's the only one, how'd it find a wife?
You see, then this life, we could see in the fossil records that this creature, fins to feet, eventually evolves into a black bear.
How did we get mammals, Professor? I mean, okay, how did we get whales? Big mammals in the water. Okay, you tell me that one, Mr. Smarty Pants.
You see, the black bear, spending such great hours in the waters catching fish, eventually turns back into a type of fish. The black bear itself evolved back into a whale. Yes, the ancestor of the whale.
Dang, man. That's the most absurd thing I've ever heard. A black bear to whale. I got a bridge in Boone County I'd like to sell you.
Cooter, that's an old insult. Don't do that.
I'm serious. I've got a bridge. It's in Boone County. My grandpappy made it. Ain't got nobody want to buy it. Nobody's going to buy it. But I figured this little guy's so dumb, he might actually buy that thing.
All right,
off of
stop,
me.
guys. Enough. All right, no, enough. Stop. All right, guest, thank you. Thank you, guest, for coming onto the show. Okay? Yes, the theory of a creature crawling out of the ocean, growing feet, and then from there we evolved all kinds of life and evolving into a black bear. And then the black bear going back into the water and re-evolving back into a whale was actually one of Charles Darwin's ideas. That was actually, in his mind, settled science. They even tried to talk Darwin out of that idea. He refused. No. So I give that a green. Yes, that was settled science. All right. So why don't we go from here and actually talk about something sane? What about God as a designer of the universe? In the beginning of time, God had a plan. He had a design, a purpose, order, beauty, an earth full of life. The caterpillar, which knew no flight, could be reborn with flight. And through tears, we find joy. We find a spirit that God put inside of us. Evolution didn't create love. God is love. And He made us in His image. God says, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. You are more valuable than a flock of sparrows. God made you in His image.